So books are given different awards for various reasons. Sometimes they are given awards and we don't understand why they are given those awards or what they're for and what they mean. The Newbery and Caldecott Awards are both awards that are given by the same association, but they're different awards that have an interesting history. So today we're going to briefly talk about the Newbery and Caldecott Awards. I'm going to tell you a brief history of the Newbery Medal, and I'm going to tell you a brief history of the Caldecott Medal, and the differences of both of these awards. So let's first talk about the Newbery Award. So the Newbery Award was founded in about, 1922. It's a prestigious award that is given, and the association that supports it is the American Library Association. And the founder, his name was Frederick G. Melcher, and he actually named the award after an 18th century bookseller named John Newbery. And so what does this award look like? We see it all the time, but I don't think a lot of us really recognize what it looks like. So on the back of the award, there is an engraving, and it has the name of the winner, and it has the date given. And on the front of the award, as you can see here, it has the name of the award. So it's the John Newbery Medal, and then it has a quote, and that quote says that it's for the most distinguished contribution to American literature for children. The purpose of the award, according to the historywebpage.com, which is also in charge of the History Channel, which is a very well-known company that promotes a lot of research in the world. And so the purpose of it, according to that page, is to encourage originality and excellence in the field of children's books, to let the public know that the children's literature deserved the same recognition as poetry, plays, or novels for adults, and finally to give those librarians who make it their life work to serve children's reading interest an opportunity to encourage good writing in this field. And so when is the award given out? The award is given out about mid to late January every single year. And it is given out at the midwinter meeting by the, about the first day of the conference by the American Library Association. So it's a consistent thing that happens every year that librarians have to pay attention to. And how it's given out, so there's certain criteria that these books have to have and these authors need to have in order to be able to receive this award. And the book, The Newbery and Caldecott Awards, A Guide to the Medal and Honor Books, which was written by the American Library Association, states that their criteria needs to be, so the committee has to consider interpretation of the theme or the concept. They have to consider the presentation of the information, which includes accuracy, clarity, and organization. They have to consider the development of the plot and characters and setting, and the appropriateness of style and excellence of presentation for the child audience. And they have to keep in mind that their decision must be based primarily on the text of the book. And the award is for literary quality of presentation for children, and they really have to keep that in mind because they have to find books that fall under that criteria. So we talked a little bit about the Newbery. Now we're going to talk about the Caldecott Award. And the Caldecott Award is an award that followed the Newbery Award. It came out in 1937, so not too long after the Newbery was brought out. The founder of this was the same person who founded the Newbery Award, so it was Frederick G. Melcher, and it is also supported by the American Library Association. And he actually decided to name it after the 19th century English illustrator Randolph J. Caldecott. Therefore, it's called the Caldecott Award. It looks like this. So it's a bronze medal, and it has the words Caldecott Medal on the top, and it has a distinguishing picture that has a horse and some writing, and why they decided to pick that picture, I have no idea. That's something I'd like to further research. The back is the same as the Newbery. It has the engraving of the winner and the date that it is given. The purpose of this award is actually, according to the Association for Library Services to Children's webpage, and they state that the purpose is for the artist who had created the most distinguished picture book of the year. So the Newbery is for authors. This one is for an artist, so someone who illustrates pictures in a book. And it is also given out in mid to late January at that same midwinter meeting. It is given out on a consistent basis, so every year as well. And how it's given out, the criteria for this, according to the book that I mentioned earlier, the Newbery and Caldecott Awards, the guide, the committee needs to consider excellence in execution in the artistic technique that is employed. It needs to have excellence of pictorial interpretation of the story, the theme, and the concept. They also need to be able to have shown illustrations properly by setting the mood and information through those illustrations, so they can't use the text whatsoever. And the committee needs to make the decision knowing that their decision has to be in mind of the award is for distinguished illustrations. So they can't have their criteria based on the text or who wrote it or where. It has to be strictly pictures. And so these awards, they're both awards that are really amazing awards that are given out every single year. They're awards that make a difference in the world of literature, and they are similar awards, but they're also very different. They both share a general purpose, and that general purpose is to distinguish individuals that have created books of literary impact for children. So that's what they have in common. The difference is that they're given out for different reasons. As mentioned earlier, the Newbery Award is given to authors, and the Caldecott Award is given to illustrators. And so that brings me to who can receive these awards. There is certain criteria of who can receive them. Only U.S. citizens and U.S. residents of the United States can receive these awards, and the books that are eligible have to have been published in U.S. territory or in the U.S. Commonwealth. Anything outside of that is not eligible for the awards. So the history of the Caldecott and Newbery Awards is something that continues to be remembered every year, and though similar, they both differ in the aspect of why they are given and who can receive them. It is an exciting time of year every year when they are given out. And it's exciting to learn which authors and illustrators are going to receive them, because they actually become a part of history. This has been going on since the 1920s and the late 1930s, and it continues to go on as long as the American Library Association is in place. So are there any questions?
You mentioned on the last slide, you mentioned that only U.S. Citizens or residents can receive the award. So let's just say, for example, there was someone that happens to not be a resident or a citizen of the U.S., but they've lived in the U.S. for several years, and they happen to write amazing children's literature. They would not be able to receive that award. Is that correct?
That is correct. Unfortunately not. They absolutely have to be a U.S. citizen or a U.S. resident. It's a very strict criteria, because the American Library Association wants this award to be for authors and illustrators within the U.S. because it's something that they promote within the U.S.
Okay. So, all right. That seems a little unfair, because there are some people here in the U.S. that have been here for like 10, 20 years, and
Right.
they just don't have citizenship or residency for whatever reason. I mean, I understand that it's trying to promote within the U.S., but I don't know, I just wondered if there was any like exceptions that you know of to that rule, but it sounds like it's pretty hard and fast.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I think that these awards are such great awards. I wish that it was based more off of a national criteria versus just within the United States, but hopefully one day they'll make that change, because there have been changes in who can, not who can receive the award, but which books can receive certain awards. For example, before if a book was nominated for both the Newbery and the Caldecott Award, it wasn't able to receive both awards, but now they can do that.
Okay.
And so hopefully with the pattern of there being changed, hopefully one day that'll be able to happen.
Do illustrators and authors receive the award together, or do they have like a category for illustrators and a category for authors?
So they have a category for illustrators and one for authors.
Okay.
If there is so only an author can receive the Newbery Award, and only an illustrator can receive the Caldecott Award. You can't
Okay.
mix and match. But if it was for the same book, like let's say you have an author and an illustrator that worked on the same book, that book can receive both of those awards now.
Oh, that's cool.
But let's say you have an author who happens to also be an amazing illustrator.
That's a good question. I am actually not entirely sure about that, but I assume that if they're the ones that have written the book and they're also the ones that have done the illustrations and they both fall under that criteria of who can qualify and what can qualify, I'm pretty sure that they would give the award to that person, both of those awards.
Do you know what kind of expertise you have to have in order to be, on this board that chooses the winners of these books?
So the process to choose the winners, they're pretty much librarians that have served for a really, really long time, and these librarians have had distinguished accomplishments.
Okay.
So that's basically what the criteria is.
Okay. Yeah.
Another question that a lot of people ask is, how do these books get nominated? How do they come to be able to be nominated for these awards? And so what happens is that it starts from within. So there's a school, and teachers have to talk to their children, and the librarians talk to the children about certain books that may qualify, new books that have come out. And so they tell the children, okay, read all of these books that we've picked out that we think that might be nominated. And the children go through a process of picking out and just writing down on a little slip of paper and submitting it to the librarian which book they like the most. And then out of all of the votes, that book moves forward to the board. And then from there, the board decides, based on what the book entails, what impact it has in the literature world, of what can and cannot be accepted.
And is there any way to choose which schools and which students kind of get to vote, or can all schools get to vote? It just depends on if the teachers take the students to the library and let them vote, or how does that work?
So every year, every elementary school is able to participate in helping to nominate and to vote for which books that they like the most and what they mean to them. I think that high schools are excluded because they don't have that library program where they go and pick these books. And the books are for children, so they're not for adults. And so the younger generation, so the younger children of elementary school age would be the ones that would have to nominate for it.